We're talking 3 key things to focus on in your garden this year so that you can have a great, delicious, nourishing garden for you and your family, maybe your community, your friends, and even the animals that live around. Hopefully they'll get a little snack if you're generous. And as a bonus, this will also make you a bit of a lazy gardener. This will make lazy gardening much easier if you set up your garden. Hello and welcome back. I'm Christina Amanita and I love all things thrifty and crafty and naturey. And today we are talking about the garden. I'm so excited. So the very first thing that I want to say here, everything's connected, right? Everything in your environment is connected. So that's kind of the basis for this. So step 1, before even getting into these 3 things, is observe. Observe everything that's happening in your space. Even if you're just doing a container garden, you still want to observe your space and where you're going to set that container garden up. So observe, listen to the land, to what's going on around. Literally listen, but also, pay attention, touch things, get your hands dirty, check it out before starting so that you know what to expect. So if you're here, hopefully you already know that soil health is super important. It seems obvious. Anyway, I just feel like it has to be said. So what we're looking for here is living soil. We want our soil to have life in it, to have microbes, to have lots of stuff going on in it. So the first step in making healthy soil, again, is to observe, is to figure out what kind of soil you're working with. So if you're planting in the ground, see what's growing there already. See what animals are hanging out there. See what won't grow there as well. So for example, our space before we planted in it, we noticed that there were obviously a lot of dandelions growing. There's a lot of grass. There was a lot of like thistle and green onions, like just a lot of random stuff, but lovely stuff that we love. And then we noticed that like in certain spots there was just moss. Like a lot of the yard was moss, and that's how we figured out, I mean we already kind of knew, but that's how we figured out pretty much that like it's clay under there. That's how we figured that out. So if you have moss growing on your yard, I mean it might be different because you might be in a different zone, but you can look up in your zone what kind of soil is common, and that will help you kind of just ballpark it, and then get your hands in the soil, pay attention to what you see growing there, and that's how you know. So the next step, if you're feeling like it, is to get a soil test done. So you can do this at like your local extension office. It does take some time and it does cost a little money, but it can be worth it to know what's going on down there. There's different things like water retention, different concentrations of nutrients, but it's super helpful to know what nutrients are already in your soil so that you don't add those. You focus on adding what is really needed. So basically we knew that we just needed a bunch of diversity. So I'm going to say this again, I've said it before, I'll say it again, diversity is key in every aspect of life on earth. So we need diversity in our gardens and in our soil. So depending on your soil, again, look it up. You just want to know what organic matter you should be adding to it. So go for organic matter. Leaves and leaf mold, if you can get it from your property, that's great. If you don't have a big property, if you have a friend who has a big property or has like some woods, if there's some woods near you that's like legal to take leaves from, you can do that. And you don't need a ton, just take as much as enough, but leave plenty, right? Of course, because it's feeding the forest or whatever you're getting it from. Anyway, we won't get into that. Leaf mold, it's great. The leaves are great. The mold is great. Get it in there. Worm castings, we did this last year. We were actually gifted a bag of worm castings, and I believe that is part of the main reason that all of our plants took off. You can also make your own worm castings by doing vermiculture. I'm not there, but if that's something you're interested in, look into it. Also, making your own compost. If you don't have space for whatever, you can team up with a friend who does have space, and you both, provide compost, and eventually when it's ready, you both reap the benefits from it. So all these things are adding more nutrients, more life, more diversity to your soil. And then other things, you can make a compost tea, which maybe is a little bit quicker. I haven't done that before, but look into it if you're interested. You can make it with things that grow already on your property. Aged manure, making sure that it's aged properly. Don't just put fresh manure on your garden. And this you can buy. You can also buy compost, or you can, ask around your community. Check out on Facebook. You can check out my whole video on how to make a budget-friendly garden this year, which has a lot of tips about utilizing your community basically and your resources that you already have. So if you're planting in pots, a lot of this still applies. So like if you're looking for soil to fill your pots with, or your containers or whatever it is, you can just dig it up from the ground if you have somewhere to do that. But you could also focus on things that are organic, things that have like lots of different like microorganisms and microbial, like look for something with like worm castings. I feel like there's like bat poops. Is that a thing? I feel like there's a bat poop thing. Anyway, things that just like have a lot of good stuff in them, something that's diverse, and that is organic, and that will really make your plants happy. Do what you can. And then the last thing is beneficial fungi. We inoculated with wine cap mushrooms this year, and we got lots of wine caps, which were delicious, and I believe that it really built the soil in our garden, and it's just great. And it's great for our next point, which we should just get into, because all this stuff is interrelated. There's going to be a lot of repetition because everything is related here, and all of these tips will inform each other. One quick thing I wanted to mention here, just in addition, is that tilling soil usually is not helpful for the soil health. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes you do need to till a little bit. We used a broad fork to till our space, and then we used like a little push tiller. And it only got like this deep probably, but it just flattened out the space. And I think we needed to do that basically. But sometimes you can get around it. There's different ways to do no-till. So hopefully I'll make some more videos about that in the future, but there's also tons of videos to find out there about not tilling. But again, sometimes you do need to till just to start, but keep in mind that you shouldn't be tilling every single year. By no means. Nobody should do that, I don't think. Nobody should do that. Please don't do it, because when you till, you're killing things in the soil. Again, so just keep that in mind as you're figuring out how to get the most out of your soil, and to also feed your soil and be kind to it. So we built our soil as much as we could, and now we are planting where we've got plants in the ground, and we want to focus on water retention. Having healthy soil is step one of having good water retention. So we're already a third of the way there. So then next is just having your ground and your soil covered all the time, no matter what. It's the best way to keep the soil alive, to prevent erosion, and to keep the water in the ground. So, for us, this year, low weeding. So we didn't really weed at all. I mean, I weeded it the first, couple weeks to make sure that like our sprouts would come up without too much competition. But after that, once they get going, the weeds, mostly grass, I don't think they hurt our plants. And if our plants are already grown up strong enough, and if the soil is healthy enough, all those things should be able to grow there, and they all benefit each other, because each one of those weeds is retaining moisture, even though it's taking up nutrients, it's also providing nutrients. So eventually you can do like a chop and drop and leave all that stuff there, which is, I think, a great way to do it. Leave the weeds. Not always, but this also, again, is like a bonus, is that you don't have to weed, and like you're retaining water, and it's awesome. So the next is mulching. So this also benefits your soil, but mulching, I think, is important most of the time. If you don't have like weeds, something needs to be covering that soil, because especially here where we have the clay and it's pretty dark, the sun will beat down directly onto it, and that will dry out so quickly. So we need something there. So this year we used some straw. We didn't do too heavy on the straw, but we just kind of put it around just to like have a little bit of a barrier. And I think it worked well. It lightened the surface so that, at least in that way, it was retaining water. We also mulched our paths with wood chips. And so those will eventually break down and benefit the soil as well. And they also are where our mushrooms are growing in the wood chips. So great to have those, and we got those for free. So again, check out my budget-friendly video for that. So then again, always having something in the ground. So like right now, if it's winter and you're thinking about getting started, don't start too early, because there's so many beneficial insects, there's so many beneficial things that are still living in whatever is there, whether it's leaves or, you know, the plants that you left out from last year, whatever is there are beneficial insects still sleeping in there. So just leave that, depending where you live and what zone you're in. Obviously, I'm up in the north and it's still kind of winter here, but leave them a little longer so they can sleep and they can do you better in the garden later. So more on that in the next tip. And then the last thing, start early and stagger growth. So this can mean cover crops. This is kind of complicated, so I don't know anything about cover crops except that it's too complicated for me right now. So you can look up some other videos for that. Crop rotation. So whatever you grew last year, think about like what nutrients it provided and what nutrients it took from that spot, and then plant according to that. There's lots of charts and stuff on this on the internet. And same thing with companion planting. So planting different plants together for beneficial reasons. So a big example of this is the Three Sisters Garden, which is an indigenous principle and indigenous practice, and it's a beautiful thing with corns, beans, and squash. I assume you've heard of it, but specifically for water retention, the squash are doing this. They're covering the soil so that it retains water. So they each have their own part to play, and that also goes in with like the nutrients that are being provided by like the beans and all that stuff. You can look that up somewhere else. And then again, back to mycelium, they build soil, but they also help with water retention because they're a web, right? So they're holding in the water, and then have a rain catch for backup if you can. A lot of people say like this is illegal in a lot of places, but I'd say it's legal in a few places, some places. Just check it out. It might just be the size of your barrel or the type of barrel. You might be fine. So check out all of that for water retention. And the last thing relates to all these things once again. And just like, again, thinking back to how it's all connected. We're all trying to live in harmony here. Yes, let's get to the wildlife. All right, so wildlife, everything is connected, and all of these animals and insects and everything are, you know, affecting your garden in one way or another. So first we'll talk about pest control, whatever you consider a pest. Something that I consider a pest, or something that really needs to not be there, is aphids. I hate when aphids come. Last year we did not have a problem with aphids, and I think it's because of our soil health. But anyway, so thinking about like what plants you can plant that they won't like. So we planted our herbs first last year because typically herbs help with various types of pollinators, certain herbs better than others, but also like certain flowers. So we did marigolds. There's also nasturtiums. There's several other ones that you can look up. But also we noticed that as far as the animals, they didn't really like the tomatoes or peppers, probably because the taste, maybe it's too strong for them. And then also the squash, probably because there's thorns all over it. So paying attention to those things, especially like if this is not your first year gardening, you can think back to like, what did you notice last year? What got eaten? And usually it's, for us at least, the green stuff, the crunchy, yummy stuff, which did not stand a chance in our garden last year. So the next thing is putting maybe some nets or some fences. And again, you probably don't need a net over your whole garden, depending on, you know, whatever. Just like we're hoping to have one space where we can have like maybe a box or something, some sort of deterrent from this one area where we want to grow like a salad garden, because I want to have a salad garden, and I love sharing with the animals, but there's certain things that they will not stand a chance at all. I will never even get to try that thing because they just all come and chomp on it. Next is companion planting and biodiversity. So I already mentioned companion planting, but this also helps with pests, especially like certain insects and things. Again, like going back to like the flowers that you want to plant with things, or like these are beneficial things to plant together so that you're getting all of this biodiversity. Again, building soil health and water retention will fight back these certain insects. They come because the plants are weak, and they're thirsty, and so having thought of these things ahead of time will benefit this area immensely. So again, all connected. And then pollinators. So pollinators, we love pollinators, we want pollinators. So for pollinators, we planted native wildflowers. So we got a couple different packs of native wildflowers. That's a great way to go. They want the native plants. So other flowers are great, whatever, but like native plants is typically what the beneficial insects are looking for. And we want them to be happy and get what they want, right? So, and then you can bring in insects. We haven't done this. You can order them online. It feels weird to me. I just don't know, like ladybugs, or like praying mantises, certain things, but like, I just don't think so for me at this moment. I've heard of people who like go out and like find like fields full of ladybugs and bring them back, and that's like, to each their own. All this goes back to like, if you're in a similar zone to me, but I think a lot of this translates no matter where you are and what kind of soil you have, like the key point being biodiversity, reciprocity. We're gonna be building some bee hotels to promote, you know, some bees and let them have a little spot to lounge, and I think it's a good idea, and you can do it with all just like things you find around your property, things that they already like, and just like they have a shoebox. And I think that it's a nice way to give back again, because we can't just be taking. You can tell from this video, all this video is about giving your soil things, giving your plants things, because it's all about reciprocity. When we give, we receive. Anywho, and then the last thing, I mentioned this before, but like leaving the leaves and leaving the roots, leaving your plants. We left everything from our garden last year. I didn't even bring in the scarecrow, which I really should have, but I just never got around to it. We left everything, and I think that's a good thing, and we're gonna leave it as long as we can so that all those insects have time to wake up and get out of there before we move everything, so we don't kill them. If you feel like it's ugly to leave all the plants, you can cut them, but leave the roots in. Seriously, it will help. And the plants are good for pollinators though, so just if you cut them out, then leave some plants somewhere else for those pollinators, I guess. All right, I know this was a very long chat. Thank you so much for sticking around. I just want people to know that like it's really all about working with the land. I feel like I talk to people all the time who have home gardens who are asking me about stuff, and they're like, oh, like you could really just do that? And I'm like, yeah, you can just like dig into the ground and do your best, and things will grow. Life will out. I can't remember what that quote is from. It's probably like Grey's Anatomy. But either way, life will out. Life wants to grow. Things want to grow. Seeds want to grow if you just give them a little bit of what they need. Soil health, water. Anyway, think about reciprocity. Think about what you're giving to the land, what you're receiving from the land, and always promote biodiversity every single time. Do it. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm Christina Amanita. I hope you learned something. Let me know down in the comments what was like the most surprising thing to you, maybe. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.